Some cities hide their secrets in dark alleyways. Macau hides them behind glass towers, surveillance cameras, encrypted networks, and oceans of digital data. The Shadow's Edge arrives like a quiet whisper traveling through fiber optic cables before exploding into a game of pursuit, deception, and observation. This is a story where shadows are not created by darkness alone. They are created by information. They are created by the things people choose not to reveal. And perhaps most importantly, they are created by the widening distance between old wisdom and modern technology. Released in 2025 and directed by Larry Yong, The Shadow's Edge places legendary action star Jackie Chan into a role that feels surprisingly reflective. Rather than introducing him as an unstoppable force, the film presents him as a retired surveillance expert whose greatest weapon is not strength, but observation. Around him stands a new generation raised on algorithms, artificial intelligence, predictive systems, and digital monitoring. From its opening moments, the film establishes a fascinating conflict. Can human intuition still compete with machines designed to see everything? On the surface, the movie is an action thriller built around an elaborate criminal operation. A highly skilled crew manages to evade one of the region's most advanced surveillance systems while stealing access to enormous wealth tied to modern digital infrastructure. The authorities find themselves facing a problem that technology alone cannot solve. Their systems are powerful, their databases are immense, and their resources appear limitless. Yet their adversaries remain invisible. That failure creates the central mystery that drives the narrative forward. From an industry perspective, this film is far more interesting than a typical chase story. It arrived during a period when audiences across the world were becoming increasingly aware of surveillance technology, cybercrime, digital privacy, and artificial intelligence. These themes are no longer science fiction. They are economic realities affecting governments, corporations, and ordinary citizens. By building its story around surveillance systems and technologically sophisticated criminals, the film positions itself within conversations that feel highly contemporary. Financially, the project represented a significant creative gamble. Action films require substantial investment in stunt coordination, location logistics, camera equipment, post-production workflows, and visual effects. Add an international icon like Jackie Chan, extensive urban action sequences, and a story dependent on surveillance technology, and the budget naturally expands into a high-risk undertaking. Every day of production becomes a calculation balancing artistic ambition against financial exposure. The presence of Jackie Chan also changes the investment equation. For decades, his name has functioned almost like a cinematic brand. Investors are not simply funding a movie. They are funding audience trust accumulated across generations. That trust carries value similar to a corporation's reputation. Yet reputation alone does not guarantee success. Modern audiences demand innovation, meaning the filmmakers needed to preserve the spirit associated with Chan while simultaneously presenting a story relevant to the digital age. One of the most intriguing aspects of the film is its underlying technological philosophy. Surveillance systems in cinema are often portrayed as nearly omnipotent. Here, however, technology becomes both a solution and a vulnerability. Every system designed to observe can itself be manipulated. Every network can be exploited. Every camera has a blind spot. The film repeatedly encourages viewers to examine the relationship between visibility and control. Who truly possesses power? The observer or the person who understands how observation works? Thematically, the movie also explores generational transition. The retired expert represents accumulated experience earned through years of mistakes, victories, and personal sacrifice. The younger officers represent speed, adaptability, and faith in emerging technology. Neither side is portrayed as completely correct. Instead, the narrative suggests that progress occurs when knowledge from the past merges with innovation from the future. This idea quietly runs beneath nearly every major scene. From a storytelling standpoint, the setup is remarkably efficient. The audience quickly understands the threat, the stakes, and the limitations facing law enforcement. Rather than overwhelming viewers with excessive exposition, the film introduces its central conflict through action and consequence. A criminal network has successfully challenged an advanced surveillance ecosystem. The authorities are losing. Therefore, they need someone who understands human behavior better than software. The production itself reflects this fusion of old and new. Reports surrounding the film highlighted extensive location work in Macau, large-scale action choreography, surveillance-focused visual design, and an emphasis on practical stunt execution associated with Jackie Chan's career. Even before viewers analyze a single character, the film communicates a broader message about craftsmanship. Technology matters, but human skill remains irreplaceable. Looking at the project as a business case study, The Shadow's Edge can be interpreted as an investment in multiple forms of capital simultaneously. There is financial capital funding production. There is technological capital represented by surveillance systems and digital infrastructure. There is cultural capital attached to Jackie Chan's legacy. And there is emotional capital generated through audience curiosity. Successful cinema often emerges when these different forms of value reinforce one another rather than compete. As our deep dive begins, it is worth remembering that beneath the explosions, investigations, and strategic battles lies a surprisingly modern question. In a world flooded with data, can wisdom still outperform information? The Shadow's Edge transforms that question into an action thriller, but its implications stretch far beyond entertainment. It becomes a study of technology, trust, risk, and human perception operating at the intersection of art, engineering, and finance. The first half of The Shadow's Edge unfolds with the careful patience of a chess player studying a crowded board. Every move appears small at first, yet each one quietly changes the balance of power. After establishing the failure of Macau's sophisticated surveillance infrastructure, the film immediately places its investigators under pressure. They are not dealing with ordinary criminals. They are confronting adversaries who appear to understand the system almost as well as the people who built it. That realization creates a fascinating form of narrative tension because the threat does not come from overwhelming force. It comes from intelligence. From a startup perspective, the opening investigation resembles the earliest stages of research and development. When a young company discovers a critical flaw in its product, the immediate objective is not expansion. It is diagnosis. The authorities spend much of the early narrative attempting to understand how such a sophisticated breach could occur in the first place. Their challenge is not unlike engineers examining a catastrophic software failure. Before solutions can emerge, the underlying problem must be identified. The retired surveillance expert played by Jackie Chan enters this environment carrying something modern systems struggle to replicate: experience. While younger officers rely heavily on databases, monitoring platforms, and analytical software, he approaches the mystery from a different angle. He studies behavior. He watches people. He searches for inconsistencies hidden beneath technical perfection. The film repeatedly suggests that human intuition remains a valuable asset even within a world dominated by digital intelligence. This setup creates an interesting emotional investment strategy. Rather than rushing immediately toward large action sequences, the screenplay spends time building confidence in its central characters. Audiences begin to understand their strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. Just as investors evaluate leadership teams before funding a startup, viewers are encouraged to evaluate the individuals responsible for solving the crisis. The result is stronger emotional engagement later in the story. One of the most effective elements of the first half is its treatment of information. Every discovery seems to generate additional questions. A surveillance recording reveals a clue. The clue exposes a contradiction. The contradiction points toward a larger network. This layered structure creates a sense of progression that feels natural rather than forced. The audience never feels as though answers are simply being handed out. Instead, they are earned through investigation. The criminals themselves are introduced with remarkable restraint. The film understands that mystery often generates greater interest than immediate explanation. By withholding certain details about their methods and objectives, the narrative transforms them into a puzzle. This approach mirrors how technology companies sometimes launch products through controlled information releases. Curiosity becomes a powerful asset. The less the audience knows, the more they want to learn. As the investigation expands, Macau becomes more than a location. It becomes an active participant in the story. The city's blend of luxury developments, crowded streets, advanced infrastructure, and international business activity provides an ideal environment for a surveillance thriller. Every camera, corridor, and reflective surface feels potentially important. The setting constantly reinforces the movie's central theme that observation shapes modern life. The younger investigators initially place tremendous faith in technological solutions. Their confidence is understandable. Modern surveillance systems process extraordinary amounts of information. Yet the film carefully demonstrates the limitations of relying exclusively on technology. Data can reveal patterns, but interpretation remains essential. Software can identify anomalies, but understanding motive requires human judgment. This conflict between automation and intuition becomes one of the most compelling intellectual threads in the narrative. From a pacing standpoint, the first half operates with impressive efficiency. Every sequence contributes either new information, character development, or increased stakes. There is very little wasted movement. In business terms, the screenplay generates strong ROI on narrative time. Scenes rarely exist simply to occupy space. Instead, they function as investments designed to create future payoffs. The retired expert gradually begins uncovering connections invisible to everyone else. His methods often appear deceptively simple. Rather than searching for larger databases, he searches for larger patterns. He pays attention to behavior that algorithms dismiss as insignificant. This creates an important lesson embedded within the story. Technology excels at processing information, but wisdom often emerges from understanding context. Meanwhile, the criminal organization continues operating with unsettling confidence. Their actions suggest planning measured not in days but in years. This revelation dramatically increases the perceived threat. Audiences begin realizing they are not watching opportunistic thieves. They are witnessing a highly disciplined operation designed with extraordinary precision. That precision raises the emotional stakes because defeating such an opponent will require more than conventional tactics. By the midpoint approaching the second act transition, multiple narrative investments begin generating returns. Relationships between investigators strengthen. Hidden motivations start emerging. Clues that initially appear disconnected slowly form a coherent picture. The film behaves much like a startup moving from prototype to early validation. Initial assumptions are tested, weaknesses are identified, and the path toward a viable solution gradually becomes visible. The first half ultimately succeeds because it understands a simple truth about suspense. Audiences become invested not when they know everything, but when they know enough to ask meaningful questions. The Shadow's Edge uses that principle with considerable skill. It transforms surveillance technology, criminal strategy, and human intuition into competing forces, moving toward inevitable collision. By the time the midpoint arrives, viewers are no longer merely watching an investigation. They are actively participating in the search for answers. The second half of The Shadow's Edge begins at the moment when investigation transforms into confrontation. The authorities finally understand enough of the criminal operation to move beyond questions and pursue solutions. Yet understanding a threat and defeating it are very different challenges. The information gathered throughout the first half now becomes a form of strategic capital. Every clue, every observation, and every relationship established earlier starts generating narrative returns. From a business perspective, this section resembles the launch phase of a major product. Research is complete. Testing has occurred. The market is waiting. Success now depends on execution. The investigators must act on incomplete information while their opponents continue adapting in real time. The result is a dynamic struggle where both sides constantly attempt to stay one step ahead of the other. One of the film's greatest strengths during this phase is its commitment to escalation. Rather than simply increasing the volume of action, it increases the significance of consequences. Every decision matters more because the characters finally understand what is at stake. Mistakes no longer delay progress. Mistakes can destroy it entirely. This creates a stronger emotional connection between audience and story because risk becomes tangible. The retired surveillance expert emerges as the central strategic thinker. Earlier observations that seemed insignificant suddenly reveal their value. Patterns previously hidden beneath layers of information begin making sense. This payoff feels satisfying because the screenplay does not manufacture solutions out of nowhere. Instead, it rewards careful attention. The audience experiences the pleasure of seeing scattered pieces finally fit together. The criminals, meanwhile, prove worthy of the attention they have received throughout the film. They are not defeated by incompetence. They are not undermined by internal collapse. They remain intelligent, disciplined, and adaptable. This is an important storytelling decision because strong antagonists increase the value of victory. In economics, scarcity increases perceived worth. In cinema, capable opposition increases dramatic value. The conflict between technology and human judgment reaches its most interesting stage during the second half. Advanced surveillance systems continue processing enormous quantities of data, but the decisive breakthroughs increasingly emerge from interpretation rather than computation. The film repeatedly argues that information alone is not knowledge. Knowledge alone is not wisdom. Real success comes from combining all three. Several action sequences serve a larger narrative purpose beyond entertainment. They function as stress tests. Just as engineers examine how a system performs under pressure, the film examines how its characters behave when plans begin collapsing. Fear, uncertainty, loyalty, and trust all become visible during moments of crisis. The action therefore advances character development rather than interrupting it. One particularly effective aspect of the second half is the way alliances evolve. Individuals who initially viewed one another with skepticism begin recognizing complementary strengths. The younger generation learns the value of experience. The older generation learns to appreciate emerging technologies. This mutual adaptation reflects one of the movie's central themes. Progress is not achieved by replacing the past. Progress is achieved by integrating the best elements of old and new. The pacing also becomes noticeably faster without feeling chaotic. Earlier scenes invested heavily in setup and information gathering. Now those investments generate momentum. Every revelation pushes the story forward. Every pursuit uncovers new layers of the conspiracy. Every confrontation increases urgency. The audience feels the narrative accelerating toward an unavoidable conclusion. From an emotional product-market fit perspective, the film understands exactly what viewers have been waiting for. Audiences invested in the mystery want answers. Audiences invested in the characters want growth. Audiences invested in the action want spectacle. The screenplay delivers all three simultaneously, creating a satisfying alignment between expectation and payoff. This is one reason the second half feels rewarding rather than merely exciting. The criminal operation itself gradually reveals ambitions extending beyond simple financial gain. As motivations become clearer, the story gains additional depth. What initially appeared to be a straightforward crime begins reflecting larger questions about control, surveillance, power, and vulnerability in an increasingly connected world. The narrative expands from individual conflict into social commentary without losing focus on entertainment. Jackie Chan's performance becomes especially valuable during these later stages. Rather than relying exclusively on physical action, he communicates authority through restraint, observation, and confidence. His character often appears calm precisely when situations become most dangerous. That calmness functions almost like a stabilizing force within the story. It reminds viewers that wisdom accumulated over decades possesses its own form of power. As the climax approaches, multiple narrative threads begin converging. Hidden motives are exposed. Strategic assumptions are challenged. Relationships are tested. The screenplay demonstrates impressive payoff efficiency because nearly every important element introduced earlier contributes to the resolution. Nothing feels accidental. The story behaves like a carefully designed machine whose individual components finally begin working together. The final confrontations succeed because they operate on several levels simultaneously. There is physical danger. There is intellectual competition. There is emotional investment. And there is philosophical significance. The audience is not simply wondering who will win. They're also considering what victory means in a world increasingly shaped by technology and surveillance. By the time the film reaches its resolution, The Shadow's Edge has effectively completed its transformation from mystery to payoff. Questions receive answers. Tensions find release. Character arcs achieve meaningful closure. Most importantly, the film validates the central investment it asked audiences to make at the beginning. The idea that wisdom, experience, and human understanding still possess value in an age dominated by data proves emotionally satisfying and intellectually engaging. Viewed through the lens of market dynamics, the ending functions like a successful product launch after years of development. Risks were taken. Resources were invested. Obstacles emerged. Adjustments became necessary. Yet the final result achieves what every ambitious project hopes to accomplish. It delivers on its promise. The Shadow's Edge concludes not merely as an action thriller, but as a thoughtful exploration of how humanity navigates a world where technology can observe almost everything, yet still cannot fully understand the human heart. If the first half of The Shadow's Edge asks how criminals can disappear inside a world built on observation, the character psychology asks a deeper question. Why do people choose certain paths when alternatives exist? Technology may track movement, but it cannot always explain motivation. Throughout the film, decisions become just as important as actions. The story is filled with individuals facing pressure, uncertainty, temptation, and responsibility. Their choices ultimately shape the outcome far more than any surveillance system. The retired surveillance expert stands at the psychological center of the narrative. He is not driven by ambition, recognition, or personal gain. Instead, he appears motivated by duty and accumulated wisdom. Years of experience have changed the way he views risk. Younger characters often react to immediate threats. He thinks several moves ahead. This difference reflects a concept frequently studied in behavioral economics. People with greater experience tend to focus less on short-term rewards and more on long-term consequences. One of the most interesting aspects of his personality is restraint. Modern action heroes are often defined by what they do. This character is frequently defined by what he chooses not to do. He listens before speaking. He observes before acting. He waits before committing resources. In financial markets, impulsive investors often lose money because they react emotionally. Successful investors frequently succeed because they remain patient while gathering information. The film applies a similar principle to human behavior. The younger investigators represent a different psychological profile. They possess confidence in technology, confidence in data, and confidence in speed. These qualities are valuable, but they also create vulnerabilities. Behavioral economists describe something called overconfidence bias. When people believe their tools are highly effective, they sometimes underestimate hidden risks. The film repeatedly demonstrates this phenomenon. The younger officers trust systems that appear powerful, while the older investigator constantly searches for weaknesses. Leadership pressure also plays a major role throughout the narrative. Senior officials face enormous responsibility because failure carries public consequences. Every decision influences budgets, careers, institutional reputation, and public trust. This creates psychological stress that extends far beyond catching criminals. Leaders must make choices without complete information. They must allocate resources while uncertainty remains high. These pressures mirror challenges faced by executives managing large corporations during periods of crisis. The criminal organization offers an equally fascinating study in decision-making. Their success depends upon discipline. Large criminal operations rarely survive through intelligence alone. They survive because participants consistently follow plans despite fear and uncertainty. This creates a powerful psychological tension. Every member must decide whether loyalty outweighs self-preservation. As pressure increases, maintaining trust becomes increasingly difficult. The film frequently explores the concept of information asymmetry. In economics, this occurs when one party possesses knowledge unavailable to another. Throughout the story, both investigators and criminals attempt to exploit informational advantages. The side that understands more gains leverage. Yet information itself creates psychological burdens. Individuals carrying secrets often experience stress, paranoia, and fear. The narrative effectively uses these emotional pressures to generate suspense. Trauma quietly influences several characters as well. Although the film does not always discuss it directly, past experiences shape present behavior. The retired expert approaches problems cautiously because previous failures likely taught painful lessons. Younger characters sometimes pursue aggressive solutions because they have not yet experienced similar consequences. Psychology repeatedly demonstrates that human beings learn more deeply from emotionally significant experiences than from abstract instruction. The film reflects this reality. Trust becomes one of the story's most valuable currencies. Unlike money or technology, trust cannot be manufactured instantly. It must be earned over time. Several relationships evolve because characters gradually demonstrate competence, reliability, and integrity. This process resembles brand building in business. A company earns trust through repeated performance. Individuals earn trust through repeated actions. Both require consistency. Opportunity cost, one of the most important concepts in economics, appears throughout the narrative. Every choice eliminates alternative possibilities. When investigators commit resources to one lead, they abandon others. When criminals pursue one strategy, they sacrifice different opportunities. When individuals choose loyalty, they surrender freedom. These trade-offs create much of the story's emotional complexity because there are rarely perfect options available. The film also examines how people respond differently to uncertainty. Some characters become cautious. Others become aggressive. Some seek additional information. Others rely on instinct. Psychologists have long observed that uncertainty reveals personality traits hidden during stable conditions. Crisis acts like a spotlight illuminating values, fears, and priorities. The Shadow's Edge uses its investigation to expose these deeper layers of character. Another compelling element is the contrast between institutional thinking and individual thinking. Organizations often prioritize procedure, consistency, and risk reduction. Individuals sometimes prioritize creativity and adaptation. Neither approach is inherently superior. Institutions create stability. Individuals create innovation. The film repeatedly demonstrates that meaningful progress occurs when these two forces cooperate rather than compete. Fear functions as an invisible character throughout much of the story. Criminals fear exposure. Investigators fear failure. Leaders fear public consequences. Yet fear rarely appears in obvious ways. More often it manifests through hesitation, overconfidence, secrecy, or control. This reflects psychological reality. Human beings frequently disguise fear beneath behaviors that appear unrelated on the surface. Perhaps the most important psychological lesson within the film concerns perception. People rarely act based on objective reality alone. They act based on their interpretation of reality. Two individuals can observe the same event and reach entirely different conclusions. This principle drives many of the misunderstandings, strategic errors, and surprises that emerge throughout the narrative. Understanding perception becomes just as important as understanding facts. By the end of the film, the psychological journey feels every bit as significant as the physical investigation. The Shadow's Edge is ultimately a story about human judgment operating within systems of immense complexity. Technology can process data. Organizations can coordinate resources. Finance can fund solutions. But individuals still make the final decisions. The film's most enduring insight may be that human psychology remains the most powerful and unpredictable variable in any system ever created. Every movie begins as an idea, but ideas alone do not employ crews, rent locations, purchase equipment, or finance months of production. Before The Shadow's Edge could become a story about surveillance, intelligence, and modern crime, it first had to become a business proposal. Producers, financiers, distributors, and investors needed to evaluate a fundamental question. Could this project generate sufficient returns to justify the risks involved? In many ways, the movie's real-life financial journey mirrors the investigation unfolding within the story itself. Both require strategy, patience, and careful allocation of resources. While precise financial figures remain limited publicly, The Shadow's Edge clearly belongs to the category of mid to large-scale international action productions. The presence of Jackie Chan alone significantly changes the economics of the project. His decades-long reputation functions as a valuable commercial asset. Investors are not simply purchasing a screenplay. They are investing in audience familiarity, international recognition, and a proven history of theatrical appeal. In finance, this would be described as leveraging an established brand to reduce uncertainty. Action thrillers occupy an interesting position within the entertainment economy. Unlike highly experimental dramas, they possess relatively predictable audience demand. People enjoy suspense, conflict, mystery, and action regardless of geography. This broad appeal increases revenue potential because distributors can market the same product across multiple international territories. The Shadow's Edge was designed with exactly this type of scalability in mind. Every dollar spent during production represents a calculated wager. Locations require permits. Equipment requires rental agreements. Crew members require salaries. Insurance providers require protection against unexpected disruptions. Even seemingly small delays can create substantial financial consequences. A single postponed shooting day can increase costs dramatically when hundreds of employees remain on payroll. From a production management perspective, the film appears to have invested heavily in urban environments, surveillance-focused visual design, transportation logistics, stunt coordination, and action choreography. These expenditures are not merely artistic choices. They are capital allocations intended to increase audience engagement. Producers constantly evaluate whether each additional expense contributes meaningful value to the final product. Marketing introduces another layer of financial complexity. Many viewers assume production budgets represent total investment. In reality, marketing often functions as a second major expenditure category. Trailers must be edited. Promotional materials must be created. Media campaigns require placement across television, streaming platforms, social media networks, and digital advertising ecosystems. A film can be technically excellent yet struggle commercially if awareness remains low. For a project like The Shadow's Edge, marketing strategy likely emphasized multiple audience segments simultaneously. Longtime Jackie Chan fans represent one demographic. Younger audiences interested in technology-driven thrillers represent another. International action enthusiasts form a third. Effective campaigns must communicate different value propositions to each group while preserving a unified brand identity. The concept of ROI, or return on investment, sits at the center of every commercial film. Producers do not simply ask whether audiences enjoyed the movie. They ask whether revenue exceeded costs sufficiently to justify the resources invested. The calculation sounds simple, yet modern entertainment economics make it extraordinarily complex. Revenue can emerge from theatrical exhibition, streaming licensing, television rights, international distribution, airline licensing, home entertainment, and future catalog value. Streaming platforms have transformed these calculations significantly. Decades ago, theatrical performance dominated financial evaluation. Today, a movie may generate value long after leaving cinemas. Subscription platforms require content libraries. Global distributors require licensing agreements. Digital ecosystems continuously create new revenue opportunities. The lifespan of intellectual property has become much longer than in previous generations. Jackie Chan's involvement also contributes to what economists might describe as risk mitigation. Established stars provide market signals. Distributors feel more comfortable acquiring projects featuring recognizable talent because historical performance data exists. Although no actor guarantees profitability, familiar names reduce uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty frequently improves financing conditions. The film's thematic focus on surveillance technology may have provided additional commercial advantages. Modern audiences demonstrate growing interest in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, privacy concerns, and digital infrastructure. These subjects feel relevant because they intersect with everyday life. Relevance increases marketability. Marketability increases revenue potential. Revenue potential improves investor confidence. One fascinating aspect of entertainment finance is that emotional engagement eventually becomes economic value. A thrilling sequence creates audience satisfaction. Satisfaction encourages recommendations. Recommendations generate additional viewership. Additional viewership produces revenue. What begins as an artistic achievement ultimately contributes to measurable financial outcomes. The relationship between creativity and commerce is much closer than many people realize. Distribution strategy likely played an important role in determining overall profitability. Different regions possess different audience preferences, advertising environments, and competitive landscapes. Successful distributors analyze market conditions carefully before deciding release timing. Launching a film against overwhelming competition can reduce visibility and revenue, regardless of quality. Merchandise and ancillary opportunities also contribute to total value creation. While The Shadow's Edge is not structured around toy sales or franchise merchandise in the way some blockbuster properties are, every successful film strengthens associated intellectual property. Reputation itself becomes a financial asset. Positive audience perception increases opportunities for future projects involving similar talent and creative teams. If we imagine the film as a corporate investment portfolio, several asset classes emerge simultaneously. There is the Jackie Chan brand. There is the action thriller genre. There is the technology-focused narrative. There is international distribution potential. There is streaming value. Individually, each possesses commercial worth. Combined, they create a diversified entertainment product capable of attracting multiple revenue streams. Ultimately, The Shadow's Edge demonstrates that modern cinema is neither purely art nor purely commerce. It exists at the intersection of both. Every chase sequence reflects budget allocation. Every location reflects logistical planning. Every marketing campaign reflects strategic forecasting. Behind the mystery and action lies a complex financial ecosystem where millions of dollars are committed based on the belief that audiences will invest their attention. The film itself becomes a fascinating case study in how capital, creativity, and calculated risk converge to produce a cinematic experience designed to generate both emotional impact and economic return. If Step 5 examined where the money came from, Step 6 examines where that money went. Technology is one of the most expensive components of modern filmmaking, and The Shadow's Edge is a fascinating example of how technical decisions shape emotional experiences. Although audiences remember suspense, action, and characters, every one of those emotions must first pass through cameras, lenses, editing software, sound systems, storage drives, and visual effects pipelines before reaching the screen. A film centered around surveillance technology presents a unique challenge. The audience must believe they are operating inside a world where cameras observe everything, data flows continuously, and information moves faster than people. Achieving that sensation requires more than simply showing computer screens. It requires an entire visual language designed around observation. Every frame must subtly remind viewers that someone is watching. Modern action productions frequently rely on digital cinema cameras capable of capturing enormous amounts of visual information. While official equipment specifications for the Shadow's Edge have not been extensively publicized, productions of this scale often employ systems from manufacturers such as ARRI, Red, or Sony. These cameras capture extraordinary levels of detail while maintaining flexibility during post-production. The technology allows filmmakers to adjust color, contrast, brightness, and visual atmosphere long after principal photography concludes. Camera selection is not merely a technical decision. It is a psychological decision. Different sensors produce different emotional responses. Some cameras create softer, more organic images. Others generate cleaner, sharper visuals. For a surveillance thriller, sharper imagery often supports the narrative because audiences subconsciously associate clarity with observation, analysis, and information gathering. Lens choice may be even more important than camera choice. Lenses determine how viewers perceive space, distance, and human relationships. Wide lenses make environments feel expansive and sometimes overwhelming. Longer lenses compress distance, creating feelings of confinement and surveillance. Throughout a film like The Shadow's Edge, cinematographers can manipulate audience psychology simply by changing focal lengths. One particularly interesting aspect of surveillance-themed filmmaking involves integrating multiple visual sources into a coherent viewing experience. Traditional cinematic footage often exists alongside security camera feeds, monitoring displays, mobile devices, drone perspectives, and digital interfaces. Each visual source possesses different characteristics. The challenge is making these elements feel believable while preserving narrative clarity. Color grading plays a crucial role in achieving this balance. Modern productions typically complete final color work using systems such as DaVinci Resolve. These platforms allow filmmakers to create visual consistency across thousands of individual shots. In The Shadow's Edge, color decisions likely contribute significantly to the atmosphere. Cooler tones often reinforce themes of technology, control, and observation, while warmer tones may emphasize humanity, memory, and trust. Editing technology represents another critical component of the filmmaking process. Software platforms such as Avid Media Composer, Adobe Premiere Pro, and DaVinci Resolve enable editors to assemble massive quantities of footage into coherent stories. Yet editing is not merely organizational. It is emotional engineering. Editors determine how long viewers spend processing information, when suspense increases, and when relief arrives. Surveillance thrillers demand especially precise editing because information must be delivered carefully. Reveal too much too quickly, and tension disappears. Reveal too little, and audiences become confused. Editors operate almost like economists managing scarce resources. Information becomes a currency. Every clue must be spent strategically. Data management itself has become a major technological discipline within filmmaking. Modern productions generate enormous amounts of material every day. Multiple cameras, backup systems, audio recordings, visual effects elements, and metadata must be securely stored and organized. A single production may accumulate dozens or even hundreds of terabytes of information. Managing that volume requires sophisticated workflows and dedicated technical teams. The visual effects pipeline likely contributed significantly to the film's surveillance ecosystem. Modern audiences expect seamless integration of digital interfaces, tracking systems, communication networks, and urban monitoring technologies. Interestingly, the most successful visual effects are often the least noticeable. When viewers accept digital elements as natural parts of the world, the technology has achieved its purpose. Practical effects remain equally important despite advances in CGI. Jackie Chan's career has long been associated with practical stunt work and physical performance. Practical effects provide something digital systems still struggle to replicate completely: genuine physical interaction with the environment. Audiences instinctively recognize real motion, real gravity, and real consequences. These qualities create authenticity. One of the film's most important technological achievements may simply be coordination. Modern productions involve hundreds of specialists working across multiple departments. Cameras, sound teams, lighting crews, editors, visual effects artists, data managers, and production coordinators all contribute pieces of the final experience. Technology serves as the connective tissue, allowing these departments to collaborate efficiently. Lighting technology deserves special attention because surveillance stories depend heavily upon visibility. Advanced LED systems allow filmmakers to control illumination with extraordinary precision. Entire environments can be adjusted digitally, enabling rapid changes without extensive physical reconstruction. This flexibility saves both time and money while expanding creative possibilities. Audio technology also contributes significantly to the sensation of living inside a connected world. Wireless communications, surveillance feeds, monitoring systems, and environmental soundscapes require careful integration. Modern sound production tools allow mixers to position audio elements spatially, creating immersive experiences that reinforce the film's themes of observation and information flow. The film's technological philosophy mirrors its narrative philosophy. Systems become more powerful every year. Cameras become sharper. Computers become faster. Software becomes more capable. Yet none of these tools possess meaning independently. Their value emerges only when guided by human intention. A camera records images, but people create stories. Software processes data, but people discover significance. Looking at the shadow's edge through the lens of innovation, it becomes clear that modern filmmaking increasingly resembles advanced manufacturing. Hardware, software, logistics, engineering, design, and psychology all intersect within a single production ecosystem. The audience experiences a seamless narrative, but beneath that experience exists a remarkably sophisticated technological infrastructure operating with extraordinary precision. Ultimately, the technology behind the shadow's edge serves the same purpose as the surveillance systems within its story. Both gather information. Both seek clarity. Both attempt to reveal hidden truths. Yet the film quietly reminds us that technology alone is never enough. Human judgment remains the final interpreter. Whether solving crimes or creating cinema, machines may extend our capabilities, but meaning still originates with people. Movies often appear effortless when viewed from a comfortable seat. Characters move through cities, investigations unfold, action sequences arrive precisely when needed, and the story flows naturally from beginning to end. Yet behind every minute of screen time exists a vast organizational machine coordinating hundreds of people, thousands of tasks, and millions of dollars. The Shadow's Edge is not merely a surveillance thriller. It is also a remarkable example of production management operating at industrial scale. Every film begins with a simple limitation:
time.
No matter how ambitious the vision, production schedules remain finite. Locations are available only for specific periods. Equipment rentals have deadlines. Actors possess limited availability. Crew members work within contractual timeframes. From a management perspective, filmmaking resembles a corporate project where every delayed decision creates measurable financial consequences. For a production involving Jackie Chan, scheduling becomes even more important. Experienced performers often participate in multiple projects, promotional obligations, and international commitments. Coordinating their availability requires months of planning. A missed production day is not simply an inconvenience. It can trigger cascading delays affecting dozens of departments simultaneously. The film's urban setting introduces another layer of logistical complexity. Cities are living systems rather than controlled environments. Roads remain active. Businesses continue operating. Pedestrian traffic never completely stops. Capturing action sequences within such spaces requires negotiation with local authorities, transportation planners, safety personnel, and property owners. Every location becomes a miniature project requiring its own management strategy. From a studio economics perspective, one of the most valuable concepts in filmmaking is resource utilization. Cameras sitting idle generate no value. Crews waiting for decisions generate no value. Locations reserved, but unused generate no value. Effective production managers constantly seek to maximize productive activity while minimizing wasted time. In economic terms, efficiency directly influences profitability. The hierarchy of a modern film production resembles the organizational structure of a large corporation. Producers function like executive leadership. Directors guide creative strategy. Assistant directors manage operational execution. Department heads oversee specialized teams. Below them, technicians, artists, coordinators, and support personnel execute highly specific responsibilities. The entire system depends upon communication flowing efficiently across multiple layers. One fascinating aspect of The Shadow's Edge is that its narrative about surveillance and coordination mirrors the realities of its production process. Just as investigators within the story attempt to monitor information and maintain situational awareness, production managers constantly track schedules, budgets, personnel movements, equipment status, and logistical developments. Information management becomes essential to success. Workforce allocation represents another major economic challenge. Large productions employ specialists across numerous disciplines. Camera operators, lighting technicians, stunt coordinators, costume designers, makeup artists, visual effects supervisors, transportation managers, and production assistants all contribute unique expertise. The challenge lies not merely in hiring talented individuals, but in ensuring their efforts remain synchronized. Action sequences demand especially rigorous planning. Contrary to popular belief, successful action scenes often emerge from meticulous preparation rather than improvisation. Every movement must be rehearsed. Every camera position must be coordinated. Every safety protocol must be verified. The more dangerous the sequence appears on screen, the more carefully it was likely planned behind the scenes. Insurance plays a surprisingly important role in studio economics. Productions carry substantial financial exposure. Equipment can be damaged. Weather can disrupt schedules. Injuries can delay filming. Unexpected events can increase costs dramatically. Insurance providers evaluate these risks carefully because a single disruption can affect millions of dollars in investment. Time truly functions as capital within filmmaking. Consider a large production employing hundreds of workers. Every additional hour represents payroll expenses, equipment rental costs, location fees, utility expenditures, transportation expenses, and administrative overhead. Delays therefore possess direct financial implications. Efficient scheduling is not merely good management. It is financial protection. The film's likely use of multiple locations across Macau and surrounding areas would have required extensive transportation planning. Personnel, equipment, costumes, props, catering services, and technical infrastructure must move reliably between locations. This logistical network resembles supply chain management within major industries. Without coordination, production momentum collapses. Communication systems form the backbone of modern productions. Department heads continuously exchange information regarding schedule adjustments, technical requirements, creative decisions, and operational constraints. Miscommunication can create expensive problems. Clear communication creates efficiency. In many ways, information becomes as valuable as physical resources. Studio executives evaluate projects like The Shadow's Edge using metrics familiar to corporate leadership teams. They examine budget adherence, production efficiency, market positioning, release strategy, and long-term revenue potential. Artistic achievement remains important, but sustainability requires financial discipline. The most successful productions balance creativity with operational control. Leadership quality often determines whether productions remain on schedule and within budget. Effective leaders create clarity during uncertainty. They solve problems quickly. They maintain morale during stressful periods. They help departments cooperate despite competing priorities. The same leadership principles that guide successful corporations frequently apply to successful film productions. One often overlooked aspect of production management involves contingency planning. Experienced teams assume disruptions will occur. Weather changes. Equipment fails. Locations become unavailable. Personnel face emergencies. Successful productions build flexibility into schedules because uncertainty is inevitable. Preparation reduces the impact of unexpected events. Looking at The Shadow's Edge through the lens of studio economics reveals an important truth. Films are not manufactured by cameras alone. They are manufactured by systems. Hundreds of individuals contribute specialized knowledge within an organizational structure designed to transform creative ideas into marketable products. Every scene represents the successful coordination of countless moving parts. Ultimately, the production process behind The Shadow's Edge demonstrates that cinema is both an artistic and managerial achievement. Audiences see suspense, action, and mystery. Beneath the surface exists a sophisticated operational ecosystem governed by planning, logistics, leadership, budgeting, and execution. The film's world may revolve around surveillance and control, but its creation depended upon something equally powerful: disciplined coordination transforming complexity into clarity. Historical and scientific accuracy can be a complicated subject for any thriller. Unlike documentaries, thrillers are not obligated to reproduce reality with perfect precision. Their primary responsibility is storytelling. Yet the most effective thrillers often borrow heavily from real-world systems, technologies, and human behavior because authenticity strengthens immersion. The Shadow's Edge operates within this fascinating space between reality and dramatization, constructing a fictional narrative upon foundations that feel increasingly relevant in the modern world. The most obvious area of examination involves surveillance technology itself. Modern cities genuinely operate through vast networks of cameras, sensors, communication systems, databases, and monitoring infrastructure. Major metropolitan centers around the world collect enormous quantities of information every day. Traffic management systems observe vehicle movement. Security cameras monitor public spaces. Financial institutions track transactions. Telecommunications networks record digital activity. The film's basic premise therefore emerges from technologies that already exist. However, reality is often less elegant than cinema. Real surveillance systems rarely function as seamless, omniscient networks capable of instantly revealing every answer. Information exists across multiple agencies, jurisdictions, private organizations, and technological platforms. Data fragmentation remains a significant challenge. One of the film's strengths is that it acknowledges this limitation. Possessing information is not the same as understanding it. The movie's depiction of sophisticated criminals exploiting surveillance weaknesses is also grounded in reality. Security professionals frequently describe cybersecurity and surveillance as an ongoing competition rather than a final solution. Every defensive system eventually encounters individuals attempting to circumvent it. The relationship resembles an evolutionary process. Defenses improve. Attack methods adapt. New defenses emerge. New vulnerabilities are discovered. From a scientific perspective, the film's central idea that no system is completely secure is remarkably accurate. Engineers rarely speak in absolutes. Instead, they discuss probabilities, risk reduction, and resilience. Modern infrastructure can become extremely secure, but perfect security remains largely theoretical. Human error, system complexity, and unexpected circumstances continuously create opportunities for exploitation. The portrayal of human observation as a complement to technology also aligns closely with real-world practice. In intelligence work, law enforcement, cybersecurity, and corporate risk management, human analysts remain essential despite extraordinary advances in automation. Artificial intelligence excels at pattern recognition and large-scale data processing. Humans remain particularly valuable when interpreting context, ambiguity, motivation, and behavioral nuance. Behavioral science strongly supports one of the film's recurring themes. Human beings often reveal intentions through patterns that appear insignificant individually but become meaningful collectively. Experienced investigators frequently identify anomalies not because they possess more information than others, but because they interpret information differently. Expertise often consists of recognizing subtle relationships invisible to less experienced observers. The depiction of organized criminal planning also deserves examination. Popular entertainment occasionally portrays criminal enterprises as chaotic organizations driven purely by impulse. In reality, successful criminal operations often demonstrate substantial planning, discipline, resource management, and operational security. While the film understandably dramatizes certain elements, its portrayal of preparation and coordination reflects realities frequently observed by investigators. Macau itself contributes an interesting layer of authenticity. As a major international destination with significant tourism, financial activity, and advanced urban infrastructure, it provides a plausible environment for a surveillance-centered thriller. Large modern cities generate enormous amounts of data and logistical complexity. Such environments naturally create opportunities for both security and vulnerability. The communication technologies depicted throughout the film generally reflect modern capabilities. Secure communications, encrypted systems, digital tracking tools, network monitoring platforms, and sophisticated data management technologies all exist in various forms. The film occasionally accelerates processes for dramatic efficiency, but the underlying concepts remain recognizable. One area where cinema often departs from reality involves investigation speed. Real investigations can require months or even years of painstaking analysis. Films compress these timelines because audiences expect momentum. The Shadow's Edge is no exception. Certain breakthroughs occur faster than would likely be possible in reality. However, this compression serves narrative pacing rather than representing a misunderstanding of investigative work. The psychology depicted throughout the story may actually represent one of its most accurate dimensions. Stress, uncertainty, leadership pressure, overconfidence, loyalty conflicts, and risk perception all influence decision-making in ways extensively documented by researchers. The film consistently portrays characters as imperfect decision-makers operating under pressure, which aligns closely with established psychological findings. The generational tension between experience and technology also reflects real-world discussions occurring across numerous industries. Financial institutions, intelligence agencies, technology firms, healthcare systems, and manufacturing organizations all face similar questions. How much authority should be delegated to automated systems? When should human judgment override algorithmic recommendations? The film explores these issues through entertainment, but the questions themselves are genuinely contemporary. From an educational perspective, the movie succeeds because it encourages viewers to think critically about surveillance rather than simply accepting it as magical technology. Cameras observe events. Databases store information. Software identifies patterns. Yet interpretation remains essential. The film repeatedly emphasizes that knowledge emerges through analysis rather than collection alone. Risk management principles visible throughout the narrative also correspond closely with real-world practice. Successful organizations rarely assume systems will perform perfectly. Instead, they prepare for failure scenarios. Backup plans, redundancy measures, contingency procedures, and layered security structures all exist because uncertainty cannot be eliminated completely. The story's conflicts frequently emerge when assumptions about certainty prove incorrect. Scientific realism is not measured solely by technical accuracy. It is also measured by whether a story captures the underlying logic governing real systems. In this respect, The Shadow's Edge performs surprisingly well. The film understands that technology creates capabilities while simultaneously creating new vulnerabilities. Every advancement introduces fresh opportunities alongside fresh risks. Looking beyond surveillance, the movie also presents a credible view of modern information ecosystems. Information moves rapidly. Decisions must be made quickly. Complexity continues increasing. Individuals and organizations struggle to maintain situational awareness. These realities define many contemporary industries and institutions. The film transforms them into suspense, but their foundations remain recognizable. Ultimately, The Shadow's Edge should not be viewed as a technical textbook. It is a thriller first and foremost. Yet beneath its action sequences and dramatic confrontations lies a surprisingly thoughtful understanding of surveillance, cybersecurity, human psychology, and risk management. Its greatest achievement may be that it encourages audiences to question how much they truly understand about the systems observing modern life. In doing so, it becomes not only entertaining but educational, demonstrating how fiction can illuminate real-world technological and scientific challenges through the language of cinema. Cinematography is often described as visual storytelling, but that definition only captures part of the truth. Cinematography is also engineering. Every image audiences see represents the interaction of light, glass, sensors, color science, mathematics, and human psychology. In The Shadow's Edge, these technical elements work together to create a world where observation itself becomes a central character. The movie is not simply about surveillance. It is filmed in a way that makes viewers feel observed. One of the most noticeable visual characteristics of the film is its relationship with urban space. Modern cities naturally contain geometric structures, reflective surfaces, illuminated displays, and layered architecture. Rather than treating these elements as background decoration, the cinematography transforms them into storytelling tools. Buildings become symbols of power. Glass becomes a symbol of transparency and deception. Reflections become reminders that appearances can never be trusted completely. Composition plays a crucial role in supporting the narrative. Throughout the film, characters are frequently positioned within frames that emphasize isolation despite being surrounded by people. Wide urban environments often make individuals appear small within larger systems. This visual strategy reinforces one of the movie's central themes. Human beings may believe they control complex networks, yet they often remain tiny participants within structures far larger than themselves. Lens selection contributes significantly to audience perception. Different focal lengths create different emotional experiences. Wider lenses reveal environmental context and increase spatial awareness. Longer lenses compress distance and generate feelings associated with observation, monitoring, and surveillance. The cinematography frequently leverages these psychological effects to strengthen tension without requiring additional dialogue. Surveillance stories naturally benefit from layered visual perspectives. Traditional cinematic viewpoints coexist alongside security camera-style imagery, distant observation angles, elevated perspectives, and constrained sight lines. This variety creates a subtle feeling that multiple observers may be watching simultaneously. The audience begins experiencing the same uncertainty confronting the characters. Lighting design deserves particular attention because light functions almost like information within this film. Areas receiving strong illumination often correspond to moments of discovery, clarity, or revelation. Shadows frequently conceal uncertainty, danger, or incomplete knowledge. Yet the movie avoids simplistic visual symbolism. Bright environments can still contain deception, while darkness occasionally provides protection. This complexity makes the visual storytelling more engaging. Modern LED lighting technology likely provided filmmakers with tremendous flexibility during production. Unlike older systems, advanced LED units allow precise control over intensity, color temperature, and environmental atmosphere. Entire locations can be adjusted rapidly while maintaining visual consistency. For productions balancing multiple locations and demanding schedules, such flexibility represents both a creative and economic advantage. Color science represents another fascinating aspect of the film's visual identity. Surveillance-focused stories often gravitate toward cooler palettes because audiences subconsciously associate blue and gray tones with technology, control, and institutional environments. The Shadow's Edge appears to embrace this relationship while occasionally introducing warmer colors during moments emphasizing trust, memory, or human connection. These shifts may seem subtle, but they influence emotional interpretation significantly. Dynamic range, a technical term describing a camera's ability to capture detail in both bright and dark areas simultaneously, becomes especially important in urban thrillers. Cities contain extreme lighting contrasts. Neon signs, reflective surfaces, shadows, headlights, and illuminated interiors all coexist within the same environments. Cameras capable of preserving detail across these conditions allow cinematographers greater creative freedom. The movie's use of reflections is particularly noteworthy. Glass surfaces appear repeatedly throughout the narrative. Windows, skyscrapers, display screens, mirrors, and polished architecture create layers within the image. Reflections introduce ambiguity because viewers see multiple realities simultaneously. What appears straightforward may actually be a distorted perspective. This visual motif aligns perfectly with the story's themes of hidden motives and incomplete information. Camera movement also contributes meaningfully to audience psychology. Controlled movements often accompany investigative sequences, creating feelings of precision and analysis. Faster movements appear during action scenes, increasing urgency and emotional intensity. The contrast between these approaches helps audiences instinctively understand when situations remain under control and when they begin deteriorating. From an engineering perspective, modern stabilization systems have transformed cinematography. Tools such as gimbals, tracking rigs, drones, and motion control platforms allow filmmakers to execute complex movements with remarkable precision. These technologies create visual fluidity while expanding creative possibilities. The audience experiences effortless motion, but behind that simplicity exists substantial technical sophistication. Spatial composition frequently places characters behind obstacles, architectural elements, or environmental layers. Rather than presenting information directly, the cinematography often forces viewers to look through objects. This approach mirrors the experience of surveillance itself. Information is available, but it is rarely unobstructed. Understanding requires interpretation. The city's nighttime imagery deserves special recognition. Urban environments become visually transformed after dark. Artificial lighting replaces sunlight. Colors become more saturated. Contrast increases. Reflections multiply. For a surveillance thriller, these conditions create ideal opportunities for visual storytelling. Every illuminated window suggests activity. Every dark corridor suggests uncertainty. Every reflection suggests hidden perspective. Visual rhythm functions almost like editing before editing occurs. The size of frames, movement of cameras, arrangement of subjects, and distribution of visual information all influence pacing. The cinematography of The Shadow's Edge frequently alternates between expansive observational images and tightly controlled close-ups. This rhythm mirrors the narrative itself. Sometimes the story examines systems. Sometimes it examines individuals. One of the film's most intelligent visual decisions is its refusal to treat technology as inherently glamorous. Surveillance systems are presented as functional tools rather than magical devices. Screens, cameras, monitoring centers, and digital interfaces become integrated naturally into the environment. This realism enhances credibility while preventing technology from overshadowing the human story. Looking through the lens of visual engineering, The Shadow's Edge demonstrates how cinema transforms measurable data into emotional experience. Sensors capture light. Lenses bend that light. Cameras convert it into digital information. Colorists manipulate that information. Editors organize it. Yet audiences ultimately experience none of those technical processes directly. They experience suspense, curiosity, anxiety, and wonder. Ultimately, the cinematography succeeds because it understands that observation is not merely a theme. It is a feeling. Through composition, lighting, lens choices, color science, reflections, and movement, the film creates an environment where seeing and being seen become inseparable concepts. The result is a visual experience that constantly reminds viewers of the movie's central question: in a world overflowing with information, who is truly watching whom? If cinematography determines what audiences see, sound design determines what they feel before they even realize they are feeling it. Human beings can close their eyes to avoid an image, but they cannot easily ignore sound. A distant footstep, an unexpected silence, a subtle electronic tone, or a rising musical phrase can change emotional perception instantly. In The Shadow's Edge, sound becomes more than a supporting element. It becomes an invisible surveillance system operating directly inside the audience's imagination. One of the most fascinating aspects of thriller filmmaking is that sound frequently creates suspense before visuals confirm it. A viewer may hear danger long before danger appears on screen. This psychological advantage makes audio one of the most powerful storytelling tools available to filmmakers. The Shadow's Edge relies heavily upon this principle because uncertainty remains central to its narrative structure. Surveillance-themed stories require a unique audio identity. Traditional action films often emphasize explosions, impacts, and large-scale physical events. Here, information itself becomes dramatic. The sound of a communication channel activating, a monitoring system responding, a signal interruption, or a distant transmission can carry as much narrative importance as a physical confrontation. Small sounds become meaningful because they represent information moving through systems. Modern sound production typically begins long before audiences hear the finished result. During filming, dialogue, environmental ambience, practical effects, and reference sounds are captured separately. Later, specialized teams refine, replace, enhance, and organize these recordings. What seems effortless during playback often represents thousands of individual decisions made throughout post-production. Dialogue clarity remains particularly important in a film driven by investigation and analysis. Audiences must understand critical information while still feeling immersed in the environment. Achieving this balance requires careful mixing. Voices cannot overwhelm the atmosphere, yet important details cannot be lost beneath environmental noise. Sound engineers constantly negotiate this delicate relationship. Dynamic range management plays a major role in creating emotional impact. Dynamic range refers to the difference between the quietest and loudest sounds within a mix. Effective thrillers often exploit this contrast brilliantly. Quiet moments encourage concentration. Loud moments deliver release. By controlling these transitions carefully, filmmakers guide audience attention with remarkable precision. Silence itself functions as an important production tool. Many viewers think of sound design as the addition of audio, but professional sound designers often focus equally on subtraction. Removing background noise at strategic moments can create extraordinary tension. The absence of expected sound forces audiences to anticipate what might happen next. In The Shadow's Edge, silence frequently becomes as expressive as dialogue. Environmental soundscapes help transform locations into believable spaces. Macau is not simply seen. It is heard. Traffic movement, distant conversations, building ventilation systems, electronic signals, transportation networks, footsteps, and atmospheric city noise combine to create a sense of place. These layers may not attract conscious attention, yet they significantly influence immersion. Modern digital workstations such as Avid Pro Tools have revolutionized audio production. Hundreds of individual tracks can be edited, processed, layered, and adjusted simultaneously. Sound teams can manipulate frequencies, positioning, volume, reverberation, and timing with extraordinary precision. This technological flexibility allows filmmakers to create audio experiences impossible during earlier eras of cinema. Spatial audio design deserves particular recognition in a surveillance thriller. Sounds can be positioned to create the sensation that information is arriving from specific directions. A communication signal may appear distant. A voice may seem close. A threat may emerge from outside the visible frame. These spatial relationships subtly influence audience psychology by shaping perceptions of safety and danger. Action sequences benefit enormously from sophisticated sound architecture. Viewers often assume excitement originates primarily from visuals, but audio frequently carries equal responsibility. Impacts feel powerful because sound designers construct them carefully. Movement feels fast because accompanying audio reinforces momentum. Without sound, Even impressive action can appear strangely lifeless. Music production introduces another emotional layer entirely. While effects communicate physical reality, music often communicates emotional reality. It tells audiences how events feel rather than simply how they look. The score of a surveillance thriller must balance tension, mystery, intelligence, urgency, and occasional moments of humanity. Achieving that balance requires both artistic sensitivity and technical discipline. One effective scoring approach in technology-centered thrillers involves blending traditional orchestral elements with modern electronic textures. Strings can communicate emotion and tension. Electronic sounds can reinforce themes of data, surveillance, and digital infrastructure. Together, they create a sonic environment reflecting both humanity and technology. From an investment perspective, music represents one of cinema's highest ROI creative expenditures. A powerful score can elevate average scenes and transform good scenes into memorable ones. Unlike expensive visual effects requiring substantial resources, carefully composed music can generate enormous emotional returns relative to cost. This makes scoring one of the most efficient tools available to filmmakers. Sound designers also play an important psychological role by directing attention. Human beings naturally respond to auditory cues. A sudden sound immediately attracts focus. A recurring tone establishes familiarity. A subtle change in ambience suggests emerging danger. Through these techniques, audio teams influence perception without audiences consciously noticing the process. The surveillance themes of The Shadow's Edge create opportunities for fascinating sound symbolism. Communication channels, monitoring equipment, digital interfaces, and electronic systems all possess distinct sonic identities. These sounds become recurring motifs. Over time, audiences subconsciously associate them with information, control, and observation. One of the film's strongest audio achievements is likely its ability to balance complexity with clarity. Modern cities generate enormous quantities of sound. Technology generates additional layers. Action sequences introduce further intensity. Yet audiences must never feel overwhelmed. Professional mixing transforms potential chaos into coherent emotional experiences. Ultimately, sound design in The Shadow's Edge functions as an investment in immersion. Every ambient layer, musical phrase, dialogue adjustment, and spatial cue contributes to a larger objective. The audience should not merely watch the investigation. They should feel surrounded by it. They should sense information moving through networks, danger approaching through silence, and tension building beneath ordinary sounds. The result is a sonic experience that reinforces the film's central idea: observation is not only visual. Sometimes the most important clues arrive through what we hear. Marketing is often misunderstood as the process of convincing people to watch a movie. In reality, effective marketing begins much earlier. It starts by identifying who is most likely to care about a story and why. The Shadow's Edge presents an especially interesting case because it combines several audience categories simultaneously. It is a Jackie Chan film. It is a surveillance thriller. It is an investigation story. It is also a technology-themed action movie. Each of these elements attracts different viewers, creating both opportunities and challenges for marketers. From a business perspective, every marketing campaign begins with audience segmentation. Not all viewers respond to the same message. Some audiences are attracted by action. Others are interested in mystery. Some follow actors. Others follow genres. The marketing team behind The Shadow's Edge would likely have analyzed these groups carefully before developing promotional materials. Understanding audiences is often more valuable than understanding products. Jackie Chan himself represents one of the most powerful marketing assets available to the film. Decades of successful projects have transformed his name into a global entertainment brand. Brand recognition reduces customer acquisition costs because audiences already possess awareness and familiarity. In advertising terminology, trust lowers friction. People are more willing to engage with products associated with positive experiences from the past. Trailer strategy becomes especially important for a movie like this. Modern trailers function as highly optimized advertising products rather than simple previews. Editors carefully select scenes designed to maximize curiosity while minimizing spoilers. The objective is not to explain the entire story. The objective is to create a gap between what audiences know and what they want to know. Curiosity drives engagement. One effective marketing angle for The Shadow's Edge is its fusion of classic and contemporary elements. Jackie Chan appeals to longtime fans familiar with practical action filmmaking. The surveillance and technology themes appeal to younger audiences interested in digital age narratives. This cross-generational appeal expands potential reach significantly. In marketing analytics, broader appeal increases the size of the addressable market. Social media platforms have transformed film promotion dramatically. In previous decades, marketing campaigns depended heavily upon television advertisements, print media, and outdoor placements. Today, digital ecosystems allow marketers to target highly specific audience segments. Fans of action movies can receive different promotional content than viewers interested in technology thrillers. Personalization improves efficiency. CPM, or cost per thousand impressions, represents one of the most important metrics in modern advertising. Marketing teams constantly evaluate how much they spend to reach potential viewers. Higher engagement rates generally improve campaign efficiency because platforms reward content generating strong audience interaction. A compelling trailer, therefore, becomes both a creative asset and a financial asset. A/B testing has become increasingly common throughout entertainment marketing. Multiple versions of trailers, thumbnails, posters, headlines, and promotional messages may be tested across different audience groups. Marketers examine which versions generate stronger engagement. Data then informs larger campaign decisions. Creativity remains important, but analytics increasingly shape execution. The visual identity of The Shadow's Edge appears particularly suitable for digital promotion. Surveillance imagery, city skylines, technology interfaces, dramatic lighting, and mystery-oriented visuals perform well across modern social platforms because they communicate genre quickly. Audiences often decide within seconds whether content appears relevant. Strong visual branding improves those odds. International marketing introduces additional complexity. Different regions respond to different themes. Some territories may emphasize Jackie Chan's legacy. Others may emphasize action sequences. Others may focus on technological intrigue. Effective global campaigns balance consistency with localization. The core message remains recognizable while promotional emphasis adapts to audience preferences. Search behavior also plays an increasingly important role in audience discovery. People actively seek content related to action films, surveillance thrillers, cybercrime stories, technology dramas, and Jackie Chan projects. Digital marketing teams monitor these patterns carefully. Search trends reveal audience interests before purchasing decisions occur. Understanding demand improves campaign efficiency. Influencer marketing has become another significant component of entertainment promotion. Film reviewers, movie commentators, action cinema enthusiasts, and technology-focused content creators all possess established audiences. Collaborating with such creators can generate awareness more efficiently than traditional advertising alone. Trust transfers from creator to content. One particularly interesting aspect of The Shadow's Edge is its appeal to viewers interested in real-world technology. Themes involving surveillance, cybersecurity, information networks, and digital infrastructure connect with contemporary concerns. Marketing campaigns that highlight relevance often outperform campaigns relying exclusively on spectacle. Audiences increasingly seek stories reflecting issues they recognize. Audience analytics continue long after release. Studios monitor trailer engagement, ticket sales, streaming performance, completion rates, demographic patterns, geographic performance, and social sentiment. These measurements help determine whether marketing assumptions proved accurate. Data gathered from one release influences future campaign strategies. The concept of customer lifetime value also applies surprisingly well to cinema. A single successful viewing experience may encourage audiences to watch future projects featuring similar talent, directors, genres, or production companies. Marketing therefore contributes not only to immediate revenue but also to long-term brand development. Word of mouth remains one of the most valuable forms of promotion despite extraordinary technological advances. Positive audience reactions create organic growth that advertising budgets cannot easily replicate. Every satisfied viewer becomes a potential ambassador. In economic terms, word of mouth delivers exceptional ROI because customers perform marketing functions voluntarily. Looking at The Shadow's Edge through the lens of audience analytics reveals that modern film marketing resembles a sophisticated data-driven operation. Creative materials, demographic research, behavioral analysis, search trends, engagement metrics, and predictive modeling all contribute to strategic decisions. Art attracts attention, but analytics help determine where attention should be directed. Ultimately, the marketing strategy behind The Shadow's Edge illustrates how entertainment has evolved into a blend of creativity and data science. Trailers become experiments. Posters become performance assets. Audience reactions become measurable signals. Yet beneath all the analytics remains a simple objective: convince people that this story is worth their time. When successful, marketing transforms awareness into curiosity, curiosity into engagement, and engagement into lasting audience connection. Critical reception is one of the most fascinating areas of film analysis because it sits at the intersection of art, commerce, culture, and psychology. A movie may succeed financially while dividing critics. Another may earn universal praise yet struggle commercially. The Shadow's Edge enters this conversation as a film carrying multiple expectations simultaneously. Audiences expect action because of Jackie Chan. They expect suspense because of the surveillance thriller premise. They also expect a degree of intelligence because the narrative explores technology, observation, and information systems. Balancing these expectations becomes an important factor in determining critical response. Critics often evaluate films using criteria very different from general audiences. Casual viewers may prioritize entertainment, pacing, and emotional engagement. Professional critics frequently examine thematic depth, originality, technical execution, narrative structure, and artistic ambition. The Shadow's Edge possesses strengths in several of these categories because it attempts to combine action spectacle with contemporary technological concerns. One area likely to receive positive attention is the film's thematic relevance. Surveillance technology, cybersecurity, privacy concerns, artificial intelligence, and information management remain highly visible topics across modern society. Stories connected to contemporary issues often generate stronger critical interest because they encourage discussion beyond the immediate plot. Critics generally appreciate films that provide material for broader cultural conversations. Jackie Chan's performance also occupies an important place within any evaluation. For decades, he has been associated with physical action, creativity, and charisma. However, veteran performers frequently reach stages in their careers where audiences become equally interested in maturity and presence. The Shadow's Edge benefits from this transition. Rather than relying exclusively upon physical capability, the film allows experience, wisdom, and observation to become defining characteristics. Technical execution frequently influences review quality as well. Cinematography, sound design, production value, editing precision, and visual coherence all contribute to overall perception. Even when critics disagree regarding narrative choices, strong technical craftsmanship often receives recognition. The Shadow's Edge appears positioned to perform well in these areas because of its sophisticated visual and technological foundation. Audience reception follows a somewhat different logic. General viewers tend to evaluate films through personal enjoyment. Did the movie maintain attention? Did the mystery remain interesting? Did the action feel satisfying? Were the characters engaging? These questions often matter more to commercial success than academic evaluation. Fortunately, the film structure appears designed to satisfy both intellectual curiosity and entertainment expectations. Awards consideration introduces another layer of analysis. Large prestige awards often favor dramas, historical narratives, and character-driven projects. Action thrillers traditionally face greater challenges in major award categories. However, technical categories frequently provide opportunities for recognition. Cinematography, editing, sound design, visual effects, and production design all reward craftsmanship regardless of genre. International recognition may prove especially important. Films operating across global markets often generate value through broad cultural reach rather than concentration within a single territory. Jackie Chan's international reputation creates advantages here because awareness already exists across numerous regions. Cultural familiarity reduces barriers to audience adoption. Brand perception also deserves examination. Modern entertainment increasingly functions through interconnected reputations. Actors possess brands. Directors possess brands. Studios possess brands. Individual projects either strengthen or weaken these perceptions. A successful release contributes positive momentum to everyone involved. Reputation itself becomes a form of economic capital. Streaming platforms have transformed legacy valuation dramatically. Decades ago, a film's cultural lifespan often depended heavily upon theatrical performance and physical media sales. Today, successful projects can attract new audiences continuously through digital distribution. Long-term discoverability increases the value of quality storytelling because exposure remains possible years after initial release. Cultural capital represents another important concept. Some films become reference points within public conversation. Others influence future filmmakers. Others contribute memorable performances, visual styles, or thematic discussions. Cultural capital eventually translates into economic value because relevance attracts attention. Attention generates demand. Demand supports revenue. One of the most interesting questions surrounding The Shadow's Edge concerns its relationship with evolving technology narratives. Many earlier action films treated technology as either magical or threatening. This film appears more nuanced. It acknowledges technological power while emphasizing human judgment. Such balance may help the story remain relevant even as specific technologies continue evolving. Legacy forecasting always involves uncertainty, yet certain indicators can be examined. Films tend to endure when they combine strong craftsmanship with themes that remain meaningful across time. Human behavior, Trust, risk, observation, leadership, and adaptation are unlikely to become obsolete subjects. Because the film explores these ideas through contemporary technology, it possesses potential for continued relevance. Financial legacy extends beyond immediate box office performance. Licensing agreements, streaming contracts, international television rights, educational discussions, retrospective reviews, and catalog value all contribute to long-term returns. Entertainment companies increasingly view intellectual property through decades-long horizons rather than opening weekend results alone. Academic and educational interests may also contribute to longevity. The movie touches upon surveillance systems, behavioral psychology, risk management, cybersecurity concepts, and information analysis. These themes create opportunities for discussion beyond entertainment contexts. Films with educational dimensions often enjoy extended relevance because they support conversation as well as consumption. Fan communities play an increasingly important role in preserving cultural visibility. Online discussions, video essays, reviews, social media engagement, and recommendation networks continuously introduce older works to new audiences. A film no longer depends entirely upon traditional distribution channels for survival. Community participation can sustain interest indefinitely.